It must be Hungary. Harry, come in now. Good afternoon, good morning.
Good afternoon, Kevin. It is hot in Hungary. Before you go, Kevin,
yes.
I would like you to sort a dilemma for us.
Yes, please do. Ask me anything. It's all part of the BBC policy these days on the website. You're bound to have done that. Ask me anything. Fire off.
Well, exactly. So we've got some brand new shiny commentary boxes in Hungary this year. They've built them. And now it's quite hot. Outside it's approaching 30 degrees. We've got an air conditioning unit in our commentary box, which is set, I think, to around about 20 degrees at the moment.
Okay.
And we've all had to, walk up a couple of flights of stairs to get here. Yeah. And now I've got a Sam Bird and Andrew Benson alongside me. Sam Bird is very anti the 20 degrees. He wants the aircon off. I want it on. Benson's on the fence. What are we thinking here?
Well, very disappointed that Benson's on the fence. I've never met the man, but I always have him, the man is a very decisive man. So that disappoints me on one level. But yeah, AC, have it off. Completely off. Spreading germs, especially with you lot going around the world as you do. You'll be spreading from one country to the next. Definitely, it's off.
Kevin, I think we're having some technical issues here. They're cutting out. I think you said aircon on, so I think we'll leave it there for now.
See you later.
Thank you very much, Kevin. We'll catch up with you and the cricket team after lunch. Right here, follows us on Sports Extra 2. Indeed, the air conditioning has stayed on, so thank goodness for that. And good afternoon from the Hungaroring. It is the 13th round of the Formula One season and the final race before the summer break. Very much half-term vibes in the paddock as we kick things off for the weekend. Free practice 1 coming your way shortly. I am up in the brand new and shiny commentary box, which sits right at the top of a brand new grandstand, the main grandstand that runs parallel down the start finish.
You're listening to Sports Extra 2, and it is me again here in Manchester, me being Kevin Howells. We, of course, have got some cricket coverage going on right now. All the matches, 8 games still remaining from the games that started at the beginning of the week on Tuesday. Just that one finished game yesterday. Unfortunately, at the moment, we have lost our connection to Hungary and to Harry, so obviously we are working with some fever to try and get that line back, and as soon as we have that line back, we will be joining them for practice 1.
I heard you mention elevation change. We've come from Spa. Yeah. This feels very flat now, but there is a little bit there through turn 2 and dipping before finding a small crest at turn 4, but generally so different to Spa last time around, where there is proper elevation change. It is flatter, it's much lower speed, it's very much a shorter lap. So the driving techniques are all different as well. It's chalk and cheese.
It is indeed. You're looking at the new facilities that have been built, and they've done a great job to get that done. As we look down into the pit lane, and we see Felipe Drugovich in for Fernando Alonso, one of Fernando Alonso's greatest circuits on the calendar, and the Brazilian driver Felipe Drugovich, Formula 2 champion of 2022, gets a chance on the Grand Prix weekend again. Fernando Alonso with a muscular injury, and he finds himself sitting this one out.
Tweaked his neck after the Grand Prix in Belgium. But I spoke to Charles after the race, and had a great drive, got the podium, was very happy. And he said, wow, it was physically really demanding driving around Spa. It was effectively a dry race, wasn't it, after a short run on the intermediates, but actually just pounding it round on the slicks, the tyres not really going away. The drivers' necks were really getting a workout through Pouhon. You've got a really long anti-clockwise corner as well, so a lot of stress on that. And then even corners like Blanchimont is flat out, but your neck does do a lot of load. And Fernando seems to have just really a minor tweak, but enough that he wants to rest it at this point. So I'm excited to see what Drugovich can do. I'm always excited to see what a Formula 2 champion can do when he gets behind the wheel, and Drugovich has had a few chances. Generally, he's always looked pretty competent.
Yeah, Lance Stroll has missed 3 races in the last couple of years. Every single time that Stroll has missed a race, Drugovich, who is the reserve driver and has been for a while now, has been unable to step up. So he's looking for an opportunity to prove himself. Drugovich has turned down great opportunities in other championships for this chance. It's only FP1 at the moment, but we wish Felipe Drugovich well. Worth noting, he won that title with MP Motorsport wasn't a traditional team that have taken a driver to the title. Brilliant engineer there in Mr. Rossi, who took Charles Leclerc to the title when he was with Prema, but a very, very good achievement to win that title with a different team to the usual pretenders that we see at the front, like a Prema, like an ART.
He won it quite comfortably as well, didn't he? It was a very good year he had in F2, and has just been waiting for a chance to step up, and he's had these sort of half chances. Did the pre-season test a couple of years ago when Stroll was out, and then, as you say, Stroll's missed a couple of races, but Drugovich has never had a chance to jump in. So here we go, start of a weekend, and I'm interested to see actually the comparison, Drugovich and Stroll, if we're going to get a fair comparison.
Sam Collins, how are you, sir?
I'm very good, Alex. I thought I'd just chip in with another little bit of Aston Martin news that's gone on in the last few days. A sale of a stake in that team has been confirmed, giving the team a valuation of over $3 billion US. That's absolutely huge, and just shows you the health of Formula One right now.
Certainly does. And you've got the old and the new there, Peter Power, CEO, speaking to Franz Tost, who ran that junior team for Red Bull under many different guises for a number of different years, and stepped back in recent times. They have that team principal swap, haven't they, in recent moments as well. Laurent Mekies, only his second Grand Prix weekend in charge of Red Bull, and therefore only a second Grand Prix weekend for Alan Permain at the head of the race running departments for the Racing Bulls. And everywhere that Franco Colapinto goes racing, he brings fans with him. That continues here, and he is confirmed for this weekend.
Which you have to confirm that every FP1.
Honestly, it seems ridiculous, but he is on a race-by-race deal at the moment.
It is ridiculous.
As we look at another Alpine Junior loaned to Sauber. If you're wondering what he's doing in their vibrant green colours, there you go. He is test and reserve driver for Alpine. And last year, third place, very, very strong performer, very consistent throughout the campaign. And third place in F3 the year before. Here's Hadja.
I think the track is hot enough, it's okay.
Just make sure you show them who is the strongest driver.
That's exclusive team radio for you as he goes through the systems checks and gets his morning up and running. A reminder for you that Paul Aaron is in for Nico Hulkenberg for this session. The teams have to run 4 rookies, 2 for each car as mandated. That's a rule change for this year. Alex Brundle joining us on the broadcast for the first time.
Hello, gentlemen. It's great to be back at the Hungarian, isn't it? I just thought I would flag the wind here, which we saw a little bit earlier on in free practice for Formula 2, making an impact as well. Wind today going what I would consider to be the fast way at Hungarian, and what I mean by that is you get a tailwind down the front straight, does make braking a little bit trickier into turn 1, and we saw a lot of that in Formula 2 practice as well. Then you get a lovely wind over the nose as you make your way through from sort of turn 5 through to turn 11. Which helps, of course, having airflow over the aerodynamic surfaces and generate a little bit more downforce. In general, that leads to faster lap times around the Hungarian. Benefit of the tailwind, of course, down the front straight, and then all of that lovely downforce through the middle sector.
56 minutes, 30 seconds to go. This relentless run, we're coming to the brink of the summer break, the mandated summer break, where every single Formula One factory must, according to the rulebook, completely shut down and then prove that they've shut down. Yes, you can't stop the brains of Formula One thinking about how to improve the cars, but this is done due to the relentless pace around the world, and we're about to close out round 14 in a championship that is going to belong to McLaren in the drivers and the constructors, but has been ultra competitive. And I sometimes think we take for granted the logistics of moving so many personnel all around the world so many times, and they've got a brand new facility which is great for this weekend. Slightly more room down there for the team personnel to operate on these Formula One cars, and the mandated summer break, a very, very good thing. 2 weeks where everyone has to go on holiday, having shown great commitment. Great stat to show you that is that you're looking at the 10th place team with the highest points total for a 10th place team in Formula One history at this stage of the championship. Everyone raising the stakes, raising the performance across this campaign. Here's George Russell.
Brake feels a bit long and spunky.
Understood.
Jolyon Palmer, how does that feel for a driver? Translate George Russell's team radio message for us mere mortals.
I don't know if there's maybe a slight glaze on the brakes there as they're bedding in at the start of a new weekend. And so what it means is when you have two pedals in a Formula One car, the throttle on the right, the brake on the left, and you want to attack with a load of brake pressure. But to do that, you want to have quite a short travel, firm pedal. The throttle, you want to have a long travel, soft pedal, so you can modulate it really nicely, especially for corners like this. You can see Lando just tickling the throttle, tickle, 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 go. Whereas the brake, you want to be able to just bam it on and stop at the next corner here, down towards turn one. And if they're feeling spongy, you're not getting deceleration quickly, and the travel goes a little bit longer. There we go, brake, whams on, then he'll release it. And George just saying it feels spongy, so he's having to go further into the brake travel, so he's pressing it down further and not getting the peak of deceleration.
Great explanation as we join George. It's a sentence I'm attempting at the start of this session. Very similar corners that get faster and faster. Turn 11. There's a great clip doing the rounds of the old Mercedes back in the previous regulation set, taking that corner flat. They're not able to do that. But Russell, former pole sitter around here, against expectations back in 2022. That was making use of cold conditions for the Mercedes.
Well, speaking of the old Mercedes, George Russell is running the old Mercedes rear suspension on that car after I've just had some information through from the team actually via Lawrence Barretto that the rear of the car was just bouncing too much at Spa, and that was really interfering with the aerodynamic performance of the car, and they just weren't confident in the new specification of the rear suspension they introduced a few races ago. So after a lot of discussion, they've gone back to the original version.
So those are just a few of the matches that you can follow up and down the country, and of course we will be back with more on Sports Extra 2 a little later on. Well, if you're going to use your air conditioning, I'm afraid sometimes the internet doesn't work. We are back
ring. We are in free practice 1. Apologies, having a few technical issues here up in the brand new shiny commentary boxes, but FP1 is underway. Cars are out on track. My name's Harry Benjamin. Alongside me is Sam Bird and Andrew Benson. The sun is beating down, white puffy clouds above us, actually a few dark grey clouds as well, just starting to loom as we find ourselves in the natural valley here in Hungarian, which this track runs through. 14 turns, just over 4.3 kilometres long. 8 of them go to the right, 6 of them go to the left, and everybody is out onto the circuit with the exception of Lance Stroll, who currently finds himself in the pit lane. But Sam, let's just bring everybody up to speed as we're coming into this a little bit later now. This track, just put us in the driver's seat. How challenging is it? Often described as a Monaco without the walls.
Yeah, it's super challenging. Really, the middle, Sector 2 and Sector 3, you're always working the wheel, changing left to right, a lot of change of direction. Here at the Hungaroring, it's a track that pretty much most of the drivers enjoy attacking in qualifying, but then you get to the race and it can be more challenging, especially overtaking. There's the main zone going down into turn 1, but then after that overtaking becomes very challenging.
Well, for those who wish to do a sync up with us, it's coming your way now. It's 51 minutes and 23, 22, 21, 20 seconds remain of free practice 1. And in terms of how the championship is looking, Oscar Piastri comes into this race, the last one before the summer break, with a 16-point advantage over his teammate Lando Norris at the head of the field. Max Verstappen further adrift now in third, with George Russell and Charles Leclerc making up the top 5 in the drivers' standings.
Understood. Box, please. Box, and we're going to fix this issue.
Yeah.
Box.
Yeah, box.
As much like us at the start of this session, Pierre Gasly seems to be struggling with power as well, and he makes his way back to the pit lane. So early issues there for the Alpine driver, Alpine, who sit last in the constructors' standings. McLaren with a very healthy advantage, 516 points they have. They are 268 ahead of Ferrari. Then it's Mercedes and Red Bull, the top 4. Williams are 5th, and then it's a really tight battle in the midfield with Sauber, Racing Bulls, Aston Martin and Haas, and Alpine right at the bottom of that pack. And now we are up in the commentary box, which is right at the top of the main grandstand, which is also brand new and built fresh for this year. And on the opposite side of us, down in pit lane, also in an equally new pit lane and paddock, is Jenny Gow.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? It's wide and easy to use. I've spoken to lots of the teams and they say the garage are really working for them. It was quite a dated facility. It's its 40th year this year, as the Haas car just pulled out in front of me. And yeah, they've had a facelift, an upgrade. And I'm just impressed at how quickly they've been able to do this. Work started the day after the Hungarian Grand Prix last year. And look at it, okay, there are some teething problems, there are bound to be. Next year the media centre will be up high, so we won't be down in the bunker. But do you know what? I think they've done an astounding job.
Yeah, I agree, Jenny. I think considering I don't think these facilities have really been upgraded since the Hungarian Grand Prix was built back in 1985, ahead of the first race a year later. So I think it's put a lot of smiles on everyone's faces. Indeed, the paddock suites and the hospitality units for those in the lucky seats look very nice indeed. Out on track then, we have everybody except for Tsunoda, Drugovich. Gasly's made it back to the pit lane along with Stroll. Fastest lap time at the moment goes to Lando Norris, a 1:17.631, 6/10 ahead of Oscar Piastri in second. Then it's Verstappen, Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, the top five. Also a couple of new drivers in FP1 that we need to look out for. We've got Paul Aron, who is back in the Sauber in place of Nico Hülkenberg. This is his second FP1 outing for the Estonian driver on loan from his reserve duties at Alpine. And we also have the Brazilian Felipe Drugovich in at Aston Martin. Andrew, this is a bit of a last-minute substitution for Drugovich in place of Fernando Alonso. Why is that?
Well, the team say that Alonso's been managing a muscular injury in his back since the Belgian Grand Prix. They put out a statement this morning that sounded a little bit bleak. They said that Drugovich would replace him in first practice and that a decision about Fernando's participation, I'm quoting, in FP2 and the remainder of the weekend will be made in due course, which everybody thought, oh my goodness, does that mean he could miss the race? Well, no, is the basic answer. He's got this back problem, and the idea behind him sitting out this session is it's just 1 hour's less driving that he has to do. Drugovich can fill in quite happily, and Alonso's more than capable of getting in the car in P2 and just picking up from where he left off. He's famed for his adaptability, as we all know. So it's just a question of resting the back for a little bit longer. Unless there's some kind of major drama, which I'm not anticipating, Alonso should be back in the car for the next session.
I'm sure he will be resting up well. Felipe Drugovich could be a key outing for him. One of the, I think, many contenders for a potential seat at Cadillac next year, who have got 2 seats up for grabs, and he does do a bit of racing with Cadillac over in sports cars, does Drugovich, so he'll be wanting to put on a good show for a last-minute call-up. Right, this track then, Sam, we've got the McLarens straight out in front, Norris ahead of Piastri, and we're really returning to the scene of Oscar Piastri's first career win. I mean, he must come in with immense confidence.
He will be. I mean, championship leader. Just think, that win last year, he's already won 8 Grand Prix since then, including that win, obviously. But 8 Grand Prix wins from then till now is quite an achievement, really. He's on electrifying form, and he looks unflappable. Like Lando, if there's one of the 2 drivers that looks like a weekend could affect him, it's potentially Lando that looks maybe a little bit more vulnerable, but that's his personality. It looks like Oscar doesn't let anything faze him, but they're both on, I think, pretty decent. I mean, they're going to win the constructors, aren't they? It's a matter of when, not if, but with the drivers, that's what is so mouth-watering right now.
It does sound like, because Charles Leclerc just actually pops up and splits the 2 McLaren drivers up into second. Andrew, it sounds like, and I think Lando Norris has said this, well, let's hear from Hamilton first.
Sorry, Norris another second ahead again, that was 7/10.
Correct. 1 second.
Now, where is that 1 second?
7, 5, 8 and 9. Main losses.
That's Lewis Hamilton wondering where he's losing time to Norris. So Hamilton is actually down in 7th at the moment, and turns 5, 7 and 9 just as you are into that middle sector where you just before the chicane, and then you get into the medium speed blowing sweepers left, and right again for Lewis Hamilton, where he's losing a bit of time early doors, a second in these early stages, to Lando Norris. But coming back to that championship fight, Andrew, as George Russell has a huge slide with his Mercedes, catches the rear as he comes through the slow and technical chicane out through 6 and 7, manages to hold on to it. It's going to come down to who makes the least mistakes, Andrew. Norris against Piastri.
Well, the pattern of the season so far has tended to be that when Piastri's on form, he maximises his weekend, and the only exception to that was Silverstone, where he got the penalty controversial penalty, I should say, for braking behind the safety car. Whereas Norris, when he's on form, hasn't been maximising his every weekend. So Canada will be a good example of that. He looked like he was the quicker of the two McLaren drivers in Montreal, but he didn't get his qualifying laps in properly, and then for some reason he drove into the back of his teammate in the race and retired. So that's where Norris is losing points. I think when everything's perfect, the impression that you get is that Norris is perhaps just that little bit quicker than Piastri, but the problem is he needs everything to be perfect, not just in the car but in his head as well, to perform at that level, whereas Piastri has a much higher average, if you like. His peaks might not be quite as high as Norris's, but his average is very high, and he's unflappable, as Sam was saying earlier. Nothing seems to bother him. He has a slightly sticky weekend, no problem, turn up at the next one, go again. His racing also is so clinical and incisive, and I think Belgium last weekend gave a really good example of that. Norris led the race off after the first laps behind the safety car in the wet, and he messed up the chicane onto the pit straight, and then he messed up La Source, and that gave Piastri a basically slam dunk pass up the hill to Les Combes. Whereas if Norris had nailed those two corners, yeah, maybe Piastri would still have passed him anyway, but it would have been a lot harder. And so it's little things like that. It's not usually a big error with Norris. Like Canada was a big error, of course, but it's not usually that. It's just these little things here and there that are letting him down, and it's hard to see while he's doing that him turning the tables on Piastri. And it's just really interesting to see, because last year it was completely different, and Norris was completely in control in that team. The margins were never that big, but he was he was ahead nearly all the time basically last year, and it's just not been the case this year.
The dynamic within the team, because I've spent some time obviously in hospitality, the dynamic between the two is still really, really good. They still get on, and that's, you can tell that it's not fake. They're like in front of the cameras and then awkward away from the cameras. They do genuinely get on. But as we get further into this championship, will that become a little bit more strained? When we get beyond Mexico, if they're still very, very close, I wonder whether it'll become a little bit more tense.
It is interesting how much has changed since last year, where Lando Norris almost accidentally found himself in the championship fight with Max Verstappen. And then Oscar Piastri has less experience, and one of his flaws, I think you could argue previously, was tyre management. He seems like he has developed massively over the course of his first few years in Formula One, and it seems like he's got a great team around him. And I wonder, it was here, wasn't it, where it kind of all kicked off on the team radio, because it was Lando Norris being told by Will Joseph, the way to win a championship is not by yourself, it's with the team. And that all sort of started here last year and developed into that papaya rules, and how much that has turned this year, where they can still race each other, but the dynamic has shifted in Piastri's favour. Well, what was interesting about last year was it was another example of what I was just talking about. Norris was on pole, he made a bad start, Piastri got in the lead, and then we had a race where they were really close. When Piastri was in front, he looked like he was quicker. Then they played around with their on-track positions because of some strategy decision, which I think was questionable at the time, whether they needed to actually do it. But they did it because they were trying to cover against Hamilton, I think, if I remember rightly. And that ended up with the cars inverted. And then when Norris was in front, he looked quicker, and it was all to do with dirty air, and you can't follow around this track in dirty air and so on. So then Norris ended up in this situation where he's the McLaren driver going for the championship against Verstappen, or at least trying to make a fist of the championship fight with Verstappen. Piastri wasn't. Suddenly finds himself leading a race that he didn't really deserve to be leading, but the team had put him in that position. So they created quite a messy situation, and it wasn't that papaya rules
developed from that race. It was that was the first race we heard the phrase papaya rules. They always had the same principle. That is that fundamentally the drivers race for the team, but they're allowed to race. And that's what's basically been happening for the last 12 months. And McLaren so far have been handling it really, really well. And the drivers have bought into it as an idea. But as Sam says, that's all very well when there's not a lot on the line. But when you get to the World Championship, it becomes a lot harder for the driver to get their heads around that. Now, both of them so far are saying we don't want to bring the house down just to win the championship. They've used that phrase, which is a phrase basically that they've got from Andrea Stella. So his team culture has been inculcated very powerfully in them both, because they just sort of parrot this stuff in interviews without saying that that's what they're doing. But then when you talk to Stella privately, you hear him say things, you think, hang on a minute, I just heard the drivers say that, and which happened to me a couple of races ago for various reasons. But I don't know how long it's going to stick. That's the question.
I think until the Constructors is done, I think it will be play by the rules. And then once
surely it's basically done already. Not mathematically,
but until it's mathematically done. When they've sewn that one up, and then I think it will be full gloves off, and it'll be a proper, toe-to-toe on who wants to win the World Championship. I think that's what McLaren will allow.
Well, Zak Brown has been saying, I think, earlier on in the year that he was almost expecting for them to come together at some point. They did come together in Canada, but I don't think that was really the way that anyone expected them to come together. It was just a mistake from Lando Norris. It wasn't as they were going wheel to wheel into turn one. Neither wanted to give an inch. So I feel like that expectation is still there at some point when you have two top-level drivers in a top-level team without really that huge competition now, because Max Verstappen, whilst yes he's still there and able to get the most out of it, he is quite some way behind, and expecting this to go down to the wire between the two McLaren drivers. Speaking of, Lando Norris is fastest of anybody in the middle sector at the moment. He's just coming across the line now. This should be enough to put him back on top. It is by over half a second. It's Norris and then Leclerc. Sainz up to third, Albon, Piastri the top five, Verstappen, Behrman, Hadjar, Hamilton and Ocon the top 10, with Tsunoda in 11th ahead of Russell, Gasly, Lawson and Drugovich is down in 15th ahead of Colapinto. Stroll, Bortoletto, Antonelli and Paul Aron make up the 20 drivers. Let's check in with our pit lane reporter, Jenny Gow. What news do you bring?
Thanks, Harry. Yes, about 10 of the drivers are now in the pit lane. And if I'm looking at Oscar Piastri's car at the moment, actually, they're doing a little bit of work on it. Not too much, but a little bit. And they're just wiping off all the flow bits. They've bought a really high downforce rear wing on this car this weekend. All of the teams have. That's just the way that this track leads itself to. And a lot of the teams are testing out rear wings, little elements. No one's got a major upgrade this weekend, that's for sure. Team radio?
God, it doesn't feel good.
Lewis Hamilton just saying the car doesn't feel good, Jen, and I think he's down already back in the pit lane and being wheeled outside the garage.
Yeah, especially as Charles Leclerc is currently second with a stunning lap, just behind Lando Norris. So, it's unusual to hear Lewis Hamilton saying it doesn't feel well, especially around this track, Harry. He's got such a good record.
He is strong here, isn't he? 8 times the winner, 12 podiums, 9 pole positions. His last pole was here back in 2023. That first win for Mercedes was here back in 2013. Only the second year in that Mercedes. Oh, his first year. Mercedes. Yes,
first year in the Mercedes.
12. He made the move at the end of that season. The first year for Mercedes, and then of course it transformed in 2014 for them into the hybrid era and dominance. But it feels. I think Lewis Hamilton, I watched an interview that he gave yesterday, and he's had a tough time over the last couple of years. That's fair to say. He described this season, when he gets into the summer break, so far has been a real battle. Because it must be so hard, Sam, going into a new team in the first place after having spent over a decade with familiar surroundings. But then, when clearly things are still not quite going right. I think Ferrari are doing an okay job, but the gap between them and McLaren is far too big for their liking for a start. And he's trying to engage and almost change not just a Formula One team, a whole culture, an establishment.
Absolutely. He's trying to to firstly get his feet under the table a little bit and, voice his opinions on basically Ferrari's philosophy on how they go racing and what they need to do to improve globally to try and become, constructors champions and try and bring home a Drivers' World Championship, which they haven't done since, 2007 with Kimi Raikkonen?
Drivers
World Championship.
And for half a lap with Felipe Massa in 2008.
So it's been a really long wait for Ferrari. And he brings a huge wealth of experience. But it is a struggle right now. And, when we're listening to those kind of comments, the car doesn't feel good. Well, what will happen right now is he's been wheeled back into the garage. Now he'll be giving much more constructive feedback on what the car is doing. That's not the only feedback that he will give. Car doesn't feel good. Well, that's not good feedback, right? Well, where? How? Is it low speed? Is it change direction? Is it end of braking? For me, it looks like this season he's really struggled mid to end of braking with the rear just being too loose. And now Lewis likes a car that moves around a little bit, and he likes a decent front end, but he likes the rear to follow the front. And this season it looks like that brake bias shift has been really quite aggressive towards the end of braking, and it looks like the rear just can't handle his inputs. So that's something that he's probably been trying to work on, end of braking. I don't know what you think.
This is why he's talking about engine braking a lot, because the engine braking in the Mercedes don't use it apparently, or even sometimes you use positive engine braking in the braking zone for Mercedes, but in Ferrari it's acting more like a handbrake for him. And so it's counterintuitive for the way he wants to drive the car. It's giving him almost like more rotation than he wants, basically.
And that can feel really inconsistent. You can have one lap where it feels okay, and then the next lap you go into the same corner and it gives that handbrake impression. So these are the kind of things that he's going to want to implement his own stamp on within this team. Charles Leclerc, he's used to these tools and he's used to this way of driving. Lewis is still, it takes time. People have got to understand that.
We very rarely talk about the technicalities of this stuff, and I'm not in a position to do it very well because I've got a racing driver sat next to me. But Formula One drivers, they go back to the garage and they'll be talking about things like brake shape, and it's like that's about how you address the brakes through various points of the braking phase. Sam, do you want to just explain that without getting too technical a little bit?
So as we've got Sauber, Paul Aronoff is here.
Front systems critical alarm. What do you want me to do? And stop the car, Paul. Stop the car.
He's just pulled up at the hairpin in turn 13, so the penultimate corner. So didn't quite manage to make it back to the pit lane. He's not hit anything. He's just pulled off. We can get a look at the steering wheel. It's in neutral at the moment, and you can see the LED screen on the steering wheel light up as he tries to make a few switch changes. That's brought out the yellow flag, and now it's actually gone to a virtual safety car in an FP1 session, which do we see that often? I'm not sure we do. Everyone will be going slow and going to a delta that is displayed to them on their screens, but I imagine everybody will just come back into the pits anyway. 31 minutes and 45 seconds remaining, and that looks like Paul Aron's day is done, as the marshals are now with him, and the team say sorry about that, Paul, on the radio. So shame for Aron, second practice outing of the year on loan from Alpine, and last time he got in that car it got on the podium in the Grand Prix with Nico Hülkenberg and Silverstone, but tricky start. We're going to hear, actually, the build-up to it. Let's listen. Comes into the right-hander.
No, it already sounds.
Yeah, it's gone.
It already sounds off.
So it's coming into, or even before he came into the 90-degree right-hander of turn 12, and then just pulled off in the runoff area. So one car down, then Paul Aron out of this session. Back to the technicalities.
So we're talking about brake shapes. So, the brake shapes in these cars, you want to maximise the downforce and maximise the grip that you get from the tyre and these carbon brake discs and pads that you've got in these Formula One cars. They operate at extremely high temperatures. So when you hit the brake pedal, you hit it very, very hard and very aggressively, very quickly in a Formula One car. Use that goodness from the carbon disc and pads and the slick tyre. you are pressing probably close to 100 kilos through your left leg onto the brake pedal, and you hold that for quite some time. So you've got this kind of not a triangle shape, kind of like a hill, basically. So very, very high peak pressure, and then blending off slowly as you get towards your minimum speed for the corner. And it's at the end of braking where you get that gradual shift rearwards in brake bias.
Yeah, so if in combination, half dome in Yosemite.
Yeah, exactly. So when you get down there towards the shift going towards the rear, that's when some engine braking comes in as well, and that adds a little bit more rotation. So if Lewis Hamilton isn't happy around that with the brake bias shift and the engine braking, that can create instability at the rear.
And that sounds like it's not a quick alteration, it's not a quick fix.
Well, it's challenging to get right because it's software based and hardware based. It'll be challenging.
So this is why he can only do so much when he's out on the track in that respect, and we hear him going, I'm making bullet point documents, sending them to the engineers, trying to find ways to improve as a team for the long term and the long run. Worth saying though, coming into this weekend, Fred Vasseur, team principal for Ferrari, has had his contract extended in a multi-year deal. We know Lewis Hamilton's actually quite a big supporter of Fred Vasseur. One of the reasons he came to Ferrari, worked with him in the junior category. How important do you think that is, that Vasseur stays at the helm?
Hugely important. I think he's a great leader of men. I think Fred Vasseur's the right person for Ferrari, and I think that will help extract the best out of Lewis Hamilton. Maybe we're not going to see the best of Lewis this year. Maybe this is a building year and we'll see the best of him next year.
It may also be that these ground effect cars that Formula 1's had since 2022 just don't suit his driving style. They require a certain kind of approach to cornering, which is different from what Hamilton normally does. He likes to brake late and then sort of pitch the car into the corner and have the rear slide progressively. But these cars, they don't like to behave like that. They prefer a sort of smoother corner entry. And he's, for some reason, which is it's unusual, Sam, because you'll know as well as anyone, having worked with him in Mercedes a decade ago, whenever it was, he's normally very adaptable, but for some reason he hasn't been able to apparently adapt as well to these cars as he did to all the others before.
It is, with work, I worked with 3 relatively decent Formula 1 drivers when I was at Mercedes, one being Michael Schumacher, the other being Nico Rosberg, and then Lewis Hamilton. So,
no. They got the opportunity to work with Sam.
Well, I was going to say, no wonder I never got a race seat. I mean,
that's tough. That is tough.
But the interesting thing is just the attention to detail and the memory, lap to lap, especially Michael, lap to lap memory, really, really strong. Nico Rosberg, really intricate detail when it came to numbers and knowing about the race car, and also Lewis just spending hours and hours with the engineers post-session, probably spending longer than Nico and Michael with the engineers afterwards, just working quietly, looking through the data, looking at every single plot that he can to understand what the car's doing. Not necessarily saying as much as Nico, but staying a little bit longer.
You don't see that hard work when they go into the briefings, when they get out of the car and they rush back into the hospitality units and then head into the offices and then begin the debrief. That is where really the improvements and the hard work is made. Hamilton's out on track at the moment. Just caught a glimpse of Franco Colapinto in the Alpine. There were some early issues on the other Alpine for Pierre Gasly, reported some power issues. Jenny, do we know any more?
Not a lot more. They just declared that it was a small technical thingy, and that's all they're giving me. A little similar to the pilots when we were coming out here that said, we've switched it off, switched it back on again, and apparently it's all going to work. He was talking about the whole of the air traffic system when he was doing that, not just an Alpine. But yeah, so I thought the 2 messages were very similar.
Yes, we all made it here in the end, though. Gasly still down and in pits then, looking for a 5th Grand Prix points finish this year. Pierre Gasly nicked 10th place last time out in Belgium, denying Oliver Bearman, and unfortunately that gave Oliver Bearman his 4th consecutive 11th place finish. If he gets one more, that's a record. So that's not really the one you want. One place outside the top 10. 25 minutes and 18, 17, 16 seconds remain. Charles Leclerc is fastest for Ferrari, a 1:16.7 on the soft tyre. Then it's Norris, Hamilton, Verstappen and Sainz, the top 5. Then it's Piastri in 6th, ahead of Albon. Colapinto, Lawson and Hadjar, the top 10. The 2 Mercedes of Antonelli and Russell are 11th and 12th. Then it's the 2 Haas cars of Bearman and Ocon. Tsunoda 15th, Stroll, Drugovich, Gasly's 18th, Bortoletto's 19th, and Paul Aron is now out of this session with some sort of issue cropping up in his Sauber. So just down to 19 cars left.
One thing worth keeping an eye on for this weekend is Mercedes have changed their rear suspension. They reverted it back to a layout that they used before Imola, I think it was. They introduced a new sort of slightly offset wishbone which has more anti-lift on it. But since then, their performance, apart from winning in Canada, their performance has gone downhill, and the car's been quite unpredictable on corner entry, which is why they think Kimi Antonelli has been struggling so much. Russell's a bit better able with his experience to drive around it. So they've gone back to this older suspension layout in the hope that it'll analyse some of their... it'll remove one of the possibilities that's caused them to slip back and help them analyse where exactly they've gone wrong a bit better.
This will be quite interesting, Harry. So Lando Norris is out on the soft. While we've been waffling about everything else, Formula One, it seems like a lot of drivers are now out there on the soft tyre. The medium was coming in quite nicely and the track is ramping up. Now we're getting to see what the McLaren can do on these soft compound tyres. As he runs a little bit wide in the middle of Sector 2, that might cost Lando Norris a little bit of time coming up to Sector... as I say that, he goes half a second clear of Charles Leclerc. With one sector to go, I mean, this so far is looking very strong and very ominous for the rest of the field. Surprise package of the weekend so far in the first 40 minutes of running is the Williams driver of Alex Albon up in 3rd place. I wasn't expecting to see Williams looking quite so good around this circuit. It wasn't tipped to be one that they were going to be brilliant at, as Lando Norris goes 7.5 tenths clear of Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari.
Nice lap from Lando Norris, who was on pole position here last year and finished in the end 2nd for the Grand Prix. Leclerc and Albon then 9 tenths back.
And it's that middle sector, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that middle sector where McLaren looks so strong.
And I was about to explain why. It's because their performance in the medium speed corners, as Max Verstappen put it yesterday, if I can just find the quote, which I can't because I've lost it now. Oh, incredible was the word he used. And that middle sector from turn 8, 9, 10, 11, it's a really cool sector to go and watch the cars at, actually. The cars flow, as you were saying, Harry, from one corner to the other. Here's some radio.
The flat spotty and recover, like I went off the pedal and it kept braking.
He's just gone off at turn 1. Carlos Sainz, he's just explaining he had a flat spot on his tyre. But yeah, so those corners are all medium speed corners, and turn 5, of course, which is a really long medium speed corner. It's going to be awesome through there, the McLaren. I don't think anyone's going to see which way it goes this weekend as a result of that.
Yeah, and it was an awesome lap. However, with what we were speaking about earlier, there was a part of that lap where it just feels like, again, Lando's just got to maybe rein it in a little bit. Track limits out of turn 9, he was, I mean, if it was, inside the white line, it was by millimetres. We don't need a track limits violation from Lando in qualifying, because that was super close on the exit of turn 9.
It's those little mistakes, those unnecessary mistakes that can really catch you up. We saw it last time. Lewis Hamilton, of course, ended up being knocked out of Q1 in Belgium for his lap for track limits and his lap time being deleted. Piastri, though, is now fastest of anybody in the first sector as he sweeps his way through the right-hander of turn 11. Not quite as quick as Norris in the middle sector, but 22 thousandths of a second between them coming through the middle sector times. Then he sweeps through the long arcing left-hander of 13. Pit lane entry to your right as the car sweeps to the left before turning in to the final corner. The right-hander, turn 14 and across the line. And he's, just under a tenth and a half down on Lando Norris. Both McLaren drivers on the soft tyre. Then it's a further 7 tenths to Leclerc. Stroll's popped up into fourth in his Aston Martin. Then comes Albon. Russell is sixth. Hamilton, Ocon, Antonelli and Behrman the top 10. And actually on Antonelli, Jenny, I believe you've got some news on Kimi Antonelli.
Well, I was just watching him as he came into the pit lane. He actually stayed in his pit box, didn't get wheeled back. They did a pit stop, put him out on the soft tyres, held him for a moment and then released him. George Russell just on the same, come in already on the soft tyres. They didn't change his tyres, they just held him and sent him back out onto the racing track. And it's just worth saying, I spoke to Kimi Antonelli yesterday, and there's been a lot made of his demeanour, his emotions last time out in Spa, and the fact that he was seen crying in media pen. And I think it was an upsetting weekend, but he's taken some time away from F1, just between the races Spa and here, and found himself in a better place emotionally and mentally. So hopefully coming into this weekend, he'll get something back from the car that he is just struggling to find a comfortable position with.
Yeah, it's been a rough few races for Kimi Antonelli. So far this year he's had 4 retirements, not all of his own doing, 7 non-point scores. Compare that to his teammate George Russell, just 1 non-point score for him. It has been difficult for Kimi Antonelli. Lewis Hamilton seems to be very much in his corner though, so he has the support of the 7-time champion, the man he had the unenviable task of replacing at Mercedes. But these Formula One drivers, Sam, they get younger by the year, and the pressure increases by the year as well, because Toto Wolff has brought Kimi in. He skipped Formula 3, had an okay F2 season, nothing to write home about, and was billed as Mercedes Max Verstappen almost, as Alex Albon almost loses. He does lose the Williams, just about keeps it on track as he embarks on the medium speed sweepers coming through turn 8 and 9, holds on to it, and just seeing Gabriel Bortoleto running wide at turn 4, the quick left-hander over a blind crest. But I mean, the pressure that Antonelli has to face, I can't even imagine it.
Yes, it's huge, but all the drivers, every professional driver is under pressure to perform. Doesn't matter what series you're in, you're under pressure, but it is magnified, you're right, in Formula One. And he got such a coveted seat in Formula One, didn't he, with taking Lewis Hamilton's seat at Mercedes. A lot was expected, a lot still is expected, and it's a high pressure position to be in. There's a responsibility to always be fighting for podiums if you're at Mercedes in Formula One. I think for his first season he's done okay, but he's been beaten pretty much every time out by George Russell, who's more experienced. Did we expect to see maybe a little bit more from Kimi Antonelli? Maybe at times. He did do a lovely job in Canada, but there's been quite a few weekends where he's been 4 tenths off at every stage of the Grand Prix. And hopefully in the second half of the year, after the summer break, we can see maybe a driver who works on the mental side a little bit in the summer break and comes back hopefully with lighter shoulders down a bit, breathing a bit more easy, and showing that natural talent that we all know he's got in there. We're seeing a couple more laps now on the soft tyre. The Mercedes doesn't look happy with the rear of the car at all. We've seen quite a few slides now from George Russell from the rear. I'd say that they're going to be working on a little bit of entry oversteer. The Ferraris have been out and done a push. Looks like they were able to extract more performance on the second push, so the track is ramping up and coming towards the drivers, but it is still Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri out front, albeit only 2 tenths ahead of Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, who looks very much at home here at the Hungaroring.
I'm just stood in between Ferrari and Red Bull as they're going to bring one of the drivers in, so apologies if it's going to get very noisy, but I just wanted to ask, now that we know that Max is staying, it is Max Verstappen coming in, so he'll just pull up, they'll do a quick pit stop practice, put on the new tyres, he'll switch the engine off, Thank you very much, Max. And they'll wheel him back into his garage. Now that Max has confirmed his future, at least for next year, is with Red Bull, I just wonder if that will take some of the pressure off Kimi Antonelli and George Russell at Mercedes, and they'll find themselves staying at the team, not having those questions being asked them every time they have to speak to the media, and it's just settle them and give them some confidence going forward.
I think it will. Presumably, Kimi Antonelli would have been on a 1+1, which means that it was effectively a 2-year deal, but see how he gets on in the first year, and then it was up to the team to see if they kept him. But yeah, that news will be kind of music to his ears and means that he can breathe easy a little bit. We've seen quite a few lockups, guys, going into turn 1 over the last lap or so as the drivers try and push even harder on these now degrading soft tyres. Huge lockup for Lando Norris, a huge lockup for Lewis Hamilton, and then probably the biggest of the lot, a huge lockup for Bortoleto in the Sauber. No, sorry, it wasn't Bortoleto, it was Drogovic in the Aston Martin. I mean, that will now be a very second-hand tyre. It's that front right that then doesn't want to rotate anymore going into turn 1, and yeah, that's going to be very uncomfortable for the remainder of the session. In fact, I don't think that any of those drivers will be able to go back out on that same set of softs.
It's a track that is very hard on tyres, and also especially in this session, as you said, the track really does ramp up. It doesn't get used much throughout the year, so it certainly gets grippier as it becomes less and less green. And the higher temperatures that we're seeing here, mixed with, according to Pirelli, the dark surface, the fact that it's actually quite dark in terms of colour, really leads to higher thermal degradation.
Well, that's because it carries the heat, absorb and carry more temperature. But Sector 2 and Sector 3, you're always turning. You're always adding energy into the tyre here. The only break it really gets is from 14 down towards turn 1. So it is, in terms of thermal deg, a very high thermal degradation circuit.
Now, as Oscar Piastri absolutely rockets into the pit lane and slows down, hits his markers and heads towards his McLaren garage. Now, we're a bit at odds in the commentary box here at the moment, particularly between myself and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Now, as far as I've been led in my couple of years covering this sport, the Hungarian Grand Prix, the Hungaroring, is known as Monaco without the walls. But Andrew Benson, as I said this in our preview show yesterday, which you can hear on BBC Sounds on the Checkered Flag, looked at me horrified. And apparently, no, that is incorrect, Andrew. What do you know it to be?
Well, I didn't correct you on air, Harry, did I?
Well, you may as well have done.
I just waved my iPhone at you. So the original quote was Monaco without the houses, and it was said by Martin Brundle at the first Grand Prix here in 1986. Here's Liam Lawson's radio.
Nearly drove into Isaac.
Copy. Right, driving into worrying about traffic from his teammate. Yeah, Monaco without the houses, Martin Brundle, and it was quoted in Nigel Roebuck's race report in Autosport magazine, which comes out on Thursday afternoon after the race. 4 days after the race. I was 16 years old at that time, and I read that magazine, having bought it in W.H. Smith's in Macclesfield, and I probably read it again and again and again and again because I was sad like that when I was 16. So I'm as sure as I can be that is the original source of that quote, which has now been bastardised by people like yourself, Harry.
Well, I tell you what, not just me. Let's hear what official FIA presenter Tom Clarkson said in the press conference on Thursday.
A lot of drivers refer to this one as Monaco without the walls.
It's not my fault Tom and the other drivers are misquoting Martin Brundle.
No, I think, look, well, you know what? Martin's only a few doors down from us, so we're going to have to go and knock on his door. I'm sure he probably did. It's funny how things have obviously
he probably
changed
can't
over
even
the
remember
years.
it. 40 years
that's why
ago.
I want to know if he can remember it. But Monaco without the houses, okay, well, first of all, they're all apartments in Monaco anyway. However...
So I'll explain the principle of the
please
quote.
do.
It's that it's like a street circuit, but it's not a street circuit. It's tight and twisty, so it has the character of Monaco, but without the buildings around it. That was the point of the quote.
Yeah.
So then if you replace houses with walls, it doesn't make any sense anymore in that context.
Well, it's just basically Monaco, but without the walls. That's what it is. Because you can run off here.
Well, it still has walls that you can hit.
Yeah, there are still walls.
Anyway, but that doesn't alter the point, the fundamental point that I'm making.
However, I think that was obviously a quote.
Yeah.
I will speak for others. We're not quoting it. It's I'll speak for Tom Clarkson. We're not quoting it. It's just what it has become.
Well,
referenced.
I tell you what, I'm having dinner with Tom tonight, so I'll discuss it with
That's
him.
why I brought this up. I nearly messaged him.
Can we go back to the stuff that's actually
I don't
important?
think we're quite finished
people
with this
going
yet,
around
Sam.
the track.
Race simulation runs.
Yeah, exactly. So we're actually just seeing the starter one, I think, from Charles Leclerc back on the medium compound tyre. Let's talk about that, Benny.
Go on,
really?
then.
Really?
Well, no, we can talk about how Hungaroring is the Monaco.
No, I want to hear your analysis of Charles Leclerc's race simulation run.
He's only just started it, so, I mean...
Talk away.
I wanted to get you guys away from absolute drivel.
I think we've got two different ideas of what drivel is.
Harry has got all sorts of drivel ready for the rest of the weekend.
And up my sleeve.
I mean, if we have to hear that nonsense again, my God.
That's my job description.
So, Max Verstappen looks like he's lacking pace as well. So far, we've only got 9 minutes to go. He's had a run on the soft compound tyre. He's a second there or thereabouts off the pace. Again, it doesn't look like he's too happy with the car right now, but you know that when it gets to crunch time, he will extract everything out of that, and he'll probably put it on the second row of the grid, knowing him. Any other things of note? I mean, Ollie Behrman's up in 6th place at the moment, which is a great run for him in the Haas. Kimi Antonelli is actually ahead of George Russell, so that'll give him a little bit of confidence. The Williams looked good on the hard compound tyre, but then when they fitted the softs, I think both drivers made mistakes on their second laps, which has then forced them out of the top 10. So I expect them to maybe be a little bit more competitive than what they've shown right now on the timing sheets. I think that they can be quietly confident that they'll be higher up than where they are right now. Anything else to add, Andrew, that you can think of right now? I'm trying to give a little bit of a picture of this session so far, because the last 10 minutes we've been speaking about other stuff.
That's just you, isn't it? It's the ultimate professional in you.
Well, I think that our listeners deserve to know what's actually going on the circuit.
You're right. You are right. But also they like a bit of meandering off the topic every
I know, yeah.
I tell you what, just to finish off the meandering, because we've got to get some sort of closure on this. We said we'd try and hunt down Martin Brundle, and I believe Jenny has just managed to catch up with him in the pit lane.
Nice.
Jenny, this is big news you're going to bring us right now.
Big breaking news. I'm actually next to Martin Brundle. I'm going to give him my headphone and microphone, and he will say exactly what he used on air. I'm not thinking it's going to go so well, Harry, but let's go this. Right, I'm crossing over to Martin.
Hello, Martin.
I can, yes.
Can you hear us, Martin?
Yes. Hi, Harry. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Martin. What an honour this is. Now, I gather Jenny has given you the context of our debates in Free Practice 1 so far. Do you remember what you said back in 1986 at the Hungarian Grand Prix and how you described the Hungaroring?
I sometimes can't remember what I said last week, but I do remember saying it's Monaco without the houses.
Oh,
thank you, Martin.
Do you stand by that now, or are you happy to go Monaco without the walls? We'll go with you on this one.
No, because there are walls, aren't there? And they used to be quite a bit closer to the track as well back in the day.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, it's got to be houses, hasn't it? Or luxury apartments, probably, if you want to update that.
I thought, I've not won this argument. Martin Brundle, thank you so much for that.
Have a lovely day.
Crossing over with us. Wow. Well, there you have it. Monaco without the houses. Let me just update my commentary notes then, and we're going to have to do...
Next time, maybe you'll listen to me.
Oh, no. I tell you what, though, I'm looking forward to you delivering this news to Tom Clarkson at dinner this evening. That's going to be fun. Right, okay, Monaco without the houses it is then, everybody, and we will pedal that through until the Hungaroring drops off the calendar, if it ever does.
Can I just say, that was a seminal moment. That was the first time, I believe, that Martin Brundle has appeared on the BBC since the end of the 2012 Formula 1 season. Would that be right, Patrick, the producer?
My heart rate went up a bit.
You felt starstruck then, didn't you?
Well, look, thank you very much. Well, first of all, fair play, well done, Jenny Gow, and Martin Brundle, thank you very much for your time.
That's why we pay Jenny Gow the big bucks.
It is indeed. Right, 5 minutes and 44, 43, 42 seconds. Everything feels kind of irrelevant now, really, that we've done that. But Lando Norris is quickest. We're seeing the long runs, a bit of race data being gathered now in these last 15 minutes that we've had, really. But the order... Norris and Piastri, less than 20 thousandths of a second between them. Leclerc, Hadjar, Hamilton the top 5. Behrman, Antonelli, Russell, Verstappen and Stroll is 10th.
And I posit to add that was much more interesting broadcasting than
come on, Sam.
than tracking Charles Leclerc's race simulation run.
Look, we're here for the cars, not for you two and your quirrels.
Oh dear, outside the top 10 to keep Sam happy is
What's
Albon.
a quirrel?
Well, we're quarrels. A quirrel.
Wasn't that the professor in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone?
Some kind of Quidditch term or something.
That was one of the pub quiz answers. We were at the Williams pub quiz last night, and that was one of the answers. What position do you have a seeker and a
golden snitch?
Something else, a golden snitch?
Fact,
the golden snitch.
Worth saying, actually, that you were not the only person I corrected yesterday. James Vowles, I also corrected at that quiz last night.
Well, I mean, it's not surprising you correct me anyway, but for James Vowles, you were kicking off. James Vowles hosted us, and he was hosting the pub quiz. And it was the question to do with the first V12 turbo.
The most convoluted, ridiculous question.
Basically, we didn't quite get the answer, but the question was wrong, and Andrew Benson made sure that James Vowles knew it was wrong. And then there was a penalty to pay for Andrew Benson. We won't get too much into that, but it was a fun evening with the Williams team and a very F1 heavy quiz. There were a few pop culture questions in there which we managed to ace. And we lacked you, Sam. We lacked you.
You contributed when it was which questions?
Well, I think I did all right. I got
Beyonce's kid's
name right. I got Beyonce's kid. I got Charlie XCX was the one who sort of
so huge F1 knowledge.
Look, if you'd come and not gone to the gym instead, you could comment.
I'm supposed to be the athlete, so yes, I was in the gym while you guys were getting free canapes and wine.
Look, Sam, you're kind of drifting. Can you focus with what's going on the track?
I didn't have any wine.
I will. So Lando Norris.
I did not have any wine.
No. that was other people.
Less than 4 minutes remain. Actually, almost 3 minutes remain. Outside of the top 10, just to finish off the running order, is Albon, Ocon, Gasly, Lawson, Sainz down in 15th. Drugovich is still out there in place of Fernando Alonso, who is sitting this one out. We'll see if he sits out the remainder of the weekend after Aston Martin announced he had picked up a muscular injury in his back post-Belgium and just missing FP1 as a bit of a precaution. So reserve driver Felipe Drugovich gets the call up last minute. Tsunoda's down in 17th. Pinto and Bortoletto 19th. Paul Aron is 20th, but he is out of this session now with an issue on that Sauber. So it's certainly looking then, I'd say, ominous for everybody else at McLaren's pace. Although Charles Leclerc, a couple of tenths on the soft tyre within them. We'll see the soft mainly in qualifying over the course of the weekend. And that's the other thing, though, Sam, isn't it? It's all well and good and focusing on race pace. But again, coming back to our whole Monaco description here, this is a really hard track to overtake on, and qualifying is so important.
Qualifying here is absolutely key. We've seen here that the weather, George Russell radio.
Man, I can't turn the car.
He's saying that he can't even turn the car. I think that is due to that oversteer. Basically, he's not even having to turn the car into the corners. And now watching a replay of the Ferrari into the chicane, another late. Oscar Piastri, replay from him. What's he going to do? Oh, a little slide, just dipping a wheel into the gravel and then back through. Lando Norris looks consistent on this medium set. He's done the 21.9s in a row. Oscar Piastri, though, last lap 21.6 on this medium compound tyre, so they both look relatively competitive, don't they? Although Charles Leclerc's pounding around doing something similar.
How tricky is it when it comes to the qualifying to you've got to put in that good lap, but you've got to have the space to do it as well. And particularly in Q1, when you're going to have 20 cars out on track, you've surely got to have the utmost communication with your engineer at that point.
It's very, very challenging around here, especially Sector 2, when some of the corners are a little bit blind, and you might be in bad air of another car for a period of time. So it can be very, very challenging around here, Harry.
Yeah, and we can certainly see some penalties maybe dished out if you are deemed to have held up a car and not gotten out of the way during their quick lap. We saw that happen a few times actually this year. I think Isaac Hadjar got a grid penalty for doing such a thing, for impeding Carlos Sainz back in Canada. So that'll have to be monitored quite heavily by race control on the Saturday. We're watching at the moment Ollie Behrman making his way around. I mean, talk about frustrations. I mentioned it earlier as the clock chimes down to 0. 4 consecutive 11th place finishes. I think Ollie Behrman has had a rookie season this year so far. It's been up, it's been down, there's been flashes of pace. We know he's strong. Sometimes it hasn't come together with him. He's got a few Grand Prix points finishes, managed to get some points in the sprint last time out. How have you looked at Behrman's season so far, half a year at the Haas team alongside Esteban Ocon?
I mean, Ocon is in front in terms of points scored, but I'd say that on absolute pace, Behrman's been stronger. But he's made some rookie errors, which he's allowed to do this year. Next year, you'd say, right, you've got 28, 29 Grand Prix under your belt, because obviously he did some last year. Now you've got to go and deliver more points. This year, he's got that rookie status, and he's allowed to call it a rookie status, but he's showing good natural ability. I think his racecraft is strong. I mean, the lap that he did at Silverstone was
incredible,
was absolutely scintillating, but then he went and did that silly thing in the pit lane, didn't he, under red flag conditions. So, you know, these things he will learn from, and he won't do them again. But certainly I think he's of the rookies, I think he's been second best of the rookies. For me, the best rookie so far has been Isaac Hadjar.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are in agreement with you on that, and actually Hadjar finishing in the top 4. It's only free practice 1. Still more to come from the drivers, but it is looking good for McLaren, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Nothing separating them at the top of the pile. Charles Leclerc 3rd, then it's Hadjar, Hamilton 5th, ahead of Ollie Behrman up in 6th, at Antonelli and Russell 7th and 8th, with Verstappen and Stroll the top 10. Albon finished 11th, ahead of Esteban Ocon's Haas. Pierre Gasly was 13th, ahead of Liam Lawson's Racing Bulls car in 14th, ahead of Carlos Sainz. Felipe Drugovich, solid effort from the Brazilian, catapulted in last minute in place of an injured Fernando Alonso. Drugovich ending 16th, Tsunoda 17th, Franco Colapinto 18th, Gabriel Bortoleto down in 19th spots, with Paul Aron substituting for Nico Hulkenberg in his second FP1 running. He finished 20th and last, but only got 9 laps on the board after some sort of technical issue on board his Sauber. So he will then unfortunately not get the lappage he would have wanted to. But that just about does it then for us. We're going to be back for FP2 right here on Sports Extra 2. 4 o'clock that session kicks off, so we'll be on air about 5 minutes beforehand. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, it's so much grid limited. I can't push farther than that.
Is it a specific corner phase or throughout corner?
Only just through corner, just really sliding around 4 wheels.
Copy.
That was just Tsunoda giving some feedback as he makes his practice start. Yes, thank you to the team. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Martin Brundle, as well. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live, and we'll send you back after lunch now over to the cricket. Kevin House.
Many thanks to Harry and the team there in Hungary, and as Harry says, just around 4 o'clock we'll be back on Sports Extra 2. Right now over on Sports Extra you can find more cricket.